Okay, we are live. This is Elizabeth. She's actually on faculty at the University of...
Universidad Mayor.
Okay, and you're a PhD from my sister's alma mater, Cambridge University.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, it's from outside of London. So part of the what do they call the two? The Oxford and Cambridge.
Oxbridge.
Oxbridge. That's great. So it's like our Ivy League, top of the world, right? So I have the opportunity to get some advice from her. I was just explaining I'm in a campaign back home, and I'm very fascinated about the idea of sustainable housing, and she is showing me what is a relatively standard size living here in the city, and it's funny because I actually said this is something, being from originally New York City, we're looking to do, and Elizabeth, you're telling me that's not the case here, right?
Yeah, what we are doing here is that we are showing that the living conditions for Chileans, and especially in Santiago, with this type of houses, there are flats, there are apartments, they are too small for the families to live there. So, for example, this one is 17 square meters. I'm not sure how much that is.
I'll translate it back, yeah.
18 square meters for two.
We do have calculators. And we can see it because there's literally human beings there.
Yeah, so you can see there's a door there, and you can see the furniture here. There is a kitchen and a fridge, and then you see the bed there. But the problem is that, as we were having the conversation beforehand, it's not only about the size, but it's also about how many people live in a building with this type of housing. In places, the city has been changing, and they build huge buildings with this type of departments, where like per floor, say 40 people live or more each floor. But then the buildings, they don't contribute anything to the public space. And you have one next to the other, but the public spaces are not really giving anything to the city. And that's a problem. So we have two problems. One is the cycle of the house, which we think for our for the quality of life in Santiago is too small. As you can see, you have only like the toilet there, the bathroom, then you have here the furniture for like the kitchen, and then the bed, and there's nothing else, and that's it. That's the apartment, and the apartments, and then you have many of these apartments put in together, but the buildings, they are not doing anything more than like building this huge box, one next to the other, and they are just destroying like the neighborhood.
Now, you were mentioning, I think I'm understanding what the problem would be. These are high rises, right?
Yeah.
So they're taxing the elevators, they're taxing the infrastructure, and on top of that, they're not providing a community around them. So this is just a hotel, is really what it is.
It could be.
It's not a home.
They have community places where they can wash. But you can see you can't put like a laundry space here. You have to do it somewhere else. But those communal spaces, they could be done in a good way. But still, the relationship between the buildings and one next to the other in a place where they were used to have very consolidated neighbors. Nice neighborhoods. They are just destroying some part of the city, and we call them, when you have these huge high-rise buildings one next to the other, we call it these vertical ghettos.
Yes.
And they are turned to be something like that. And then there you have like a social housing building, a house.
Now, when you say social, can we go over there and get a better idea for space? And what do you mean? And what do you mean by social housing? Like multiple families?
No, this is for a family of 4, 5, or 6, let's say.
5 or 6 people?
Yes.
Wow.
And the government, they build this type of houses, and those are called social housing. So the families, they have a subsidy, they need to apply for the subsidy, and they can get this type of houses. But it's still, depending on the situation, they have to pay some kind of, they need to have some funding.
So it's the same problem as you would have with this unit here. It's just too small, and the communities aren't real communities. They're basically bedroom communities.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's going to bring crime.
That's the market. This is one of the problems that we have. So this is social housing, which is small for a family. And it should be like better, but this is a house. And the other problem is that how the market, the market has been pushing to build smaller and smaller places, because real estate agents, they can get more and more money, so they are building smaller and smaller places and smaller and smaller apartments like this one. So this is market.
Yes.
So we have two problems here. One is that people is paying for that type of houses, which are not good enough in terms of size and in terms of how they relate to the city. And we have the other one, which is social housing, which is still very small and has the other also the problems with the public space. So those are two. It is a comparison. Both are different sides of the coin.
Yes.
Both are bad.
Yes, and so the part of this project is to demonstrate that and show people that, at least show what the reality is.
Exactly.
And then from that, you're hoping that solutions will come from it, right?
Yeah, we are not discussing solutions here. So the students, they are just
getting
reality. To know the reality.
Yeah.
Some of them, they will live or they will have this experience, but others they do not. So it's good for like the future architects to learn about this. Like just try. This is a really good exercise in terms of like learning. This is a really good exercise because you can see like in reality, not only in a drawing or in a computer, you can see the size of the places.
Now, you might think this is ironic. You guys are trying to move away from the small housing. In the United States, we have a trend towards small housing.
Yeah.
Like, I have plenty of friends that would buy this in a heartbeat. They would love this, especially in New York City. Now, also, I just moved to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh, I think a housing option like this would be very popular because we're now building a lot of new buildings in what were brownlands, and those brownlands, you know, they're asking $500,000 now for them in Pittsburgh, right? Those prices were barely affordable in New York, you know, 5 or 10 years ago. So something like this would offer a nice alternative, especially, I like the example where this is a house because you could simply stack 4 or 5 of these on, and what would take a place of like a 5,000 foot, you know, condo. So it really would offer, you know, kind of a nice alternative. But we have this like tiny home movement where people are literally buying trailers and building their homes.
I've seen that too. But as we were having this conversation beforehand, and I told you that every house or every way of living is very different from each country, and even within a country from different cities. So for our situation, for this culture, and for the needs of like inhabitants in Chile, this is a problem. And maybe, as you were saying, maybe in China or maybe in Pittsburgh or in New York, this is great. But
well, I think we like the option of having it, not necessarily the reality of it.
Yeah.
Because when you come out of college, you know, you're starting, you want to own something, you want to own some equity. It would be better to own like the equity here than own nothing at all and rent. So people want that option, especially now that we as Americans are moving back to cities, and not everybody wants to live out in the suburbs. Yeah. You know, not everybody wants to have a house as big as the plaza.
To have the option, yes.
Yeah.
I get it.
But it would be interesting to get your perspective back in the United States when you see our housing, because believe it or not, well, if you take Pittsburgh as a good example, they have a lot of independent homes that aren't much bigger than this. Yeah. They were these old mill homes for the mill workers, and they needed to live close to the mill so they could work, and then they also needed to yeah, we're in their way. We're messing up part of the project. But so spaces like this really are becoming our reality now, and we need, what you were speaking to, the community, we need access to better transportation. Exactly. We need access to better services, restaurants, bars, you know, all that is being demanded by, and we don't have it because we destroyed our infrastructure. So what you're talking about.
It's very similar to the problems that we have here then. Yeah. Because one thing is the size of the houses, and that's a problem, and we can have a discussion between like how the market is pushing like the alternatives, but the other issue is the problem with the transport. Exactly. So how many people
you do that well here with the buses and the bike lanes and the scooters. You do that much better than we do, you know.
But because you haven't seen the place where these buildings are, so I challenge you, try to go. I can show you in a map the place where we have these kind of buildings, and you will see that. And for example, they have a little not terrace but balcony, but they have another building just in front here, so they never get some sunlight. No light. So it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I have that problem with my New York place. Yeah. It's in an old tenement that has exactly the same process. Matter of fact, it used to be this size, and they took about 4 units and they made it into what is my unit now, which is about the size of this. Here, let me cut because we're hitting almost 10 minutes. Yeah.